trying to lead the organization from a higher life cycle stage, how you shifted your own behavioral pattern maybe.
In terms of a management principles, certain management principles don't quite fit exactly well in the Indian context. So realizing there, and that also helped me going through the understanding what stage we were in, the recipe for the dosage, as you would say it, for which stage of the organization is different. And in early stage, things are chaotic. Maybe perhaps it's more easier for us to define exactly what we ought to do. And once we have somewhat of establishment done, then we can let the people be more open and they can. So that was the realization, I think, more of a cultural realization as well for me than anything else.
At which stage you joined, shake hand with Adizes? In your courtship, in your infancy, or?
Yeah, I would say infancy. I would say, it was probably just after the company was formed, 2013. We had 3 centers.
Authority centralization is decentralized, or it is still remains the same? Is there a change in terms of people taking decisions?
The only way we know how to scale, because we are so decentralized as an organization. 60 clinics are 1,000 square feet location spread out across them. By the way, they're all in NCR, so they're all NCR locations. They're spread out, so they are individual ships in the middle of the ocean. So when you have they're facing the storm, their individual storm on their own. So centralized management doesn't work. So yes, we have certain principles, certain guidelines that thou shalt not do this and this, thou shalt do this and this. So those are our guidelines and principles and our standard operating procedures that we put in place. Integrity and ethics are being number one. But beyond that, the action happens in the ocean, in the middle of the ocean. So there's a captain of the ship, and so there's hierarchy within the organization, within that clinic. And then there is a group of about 10 or 12 clinics that are in a zone, and then there's zonal clinical head. So that's a sort of a fleet, if you will. And then you have the regional team. So there are certain decisions that are centralized, but those are more policy decisions. But all the execution decisions are decentralized just because of the nature of it.
How do you make sure that everybody else in your organization also follows it?
Once people are exposed to it, they buy into it. And I'm one of the biggest skeptic who bought into it. So I think if I can buy into it, I'm pretty sure most people will buy into it. So that's not the problem. So the problem is, how do you actually get exposure? So that's the second part of the problem. And so that comes with the management's buy-in. So it's our buy-in. Louis has been a chairman of the company. He has been a Adizes client for so long. I have become a fan. So so we put in processes in places. So now what we're doing actually this year is we are putting in Adizes training methodology on induction of all our employees. So as all of our new employees will come in, as part of their induction training, they will get some of the Adizes vocabulary and language.
Adizes talks about participative management. How did you make the transition in your own mindset, saying, it's good to decide, but I don't get the buy-in, the decision is as good as nothing 3 months down the line. That's a huge shift to first acknowledge that the people in the organization can undermine what you as the founder and CEO want to see happen. And how did you make it happen? How did you empower it?
The concept of mutual trust and respect is what Adizes talks about at the core of it. And that is it's not a particular decision making. It's not one decision. It is about a way of your organizational behavior, the way of your life, if you will want to put it that way. So once you develop those principles, then automatically the decisions get done. So if you have mutual trust and respect, for instance, and we say we need to have a CAPI in a meeting, so we need to have a group of people who are responsible in a meeting, and if one person doesn't come in, because they have mutual trust and respect, they either say, I live with whatever decision you come up with that meeting, and if I have an objection to it, here are my objections, and I'll articulate them. So it develops a rule of operations, right? So it's not that we are trying to say what decisions I make versus what decision clinical head makes. So those things are business issues. Invariably, if you have a certain group of people, they say, I don't think I have enough knowledge to make the decision, because I know I'm missing the influencer, or I'm missing the guy who has the authority. So once that discipline is there, then they seek in the people who have the authority. So it's more of as to what decision who's making is not what I don't think Adizes tells us. What Adizes is telling me is, how you go about the process of making that decision.